Okay, I have a new one for you guys. Why do I talk like a fucking radio host? Oh my god, what is this job doing to me? I need vacation days. Gertrude, Elias, someone. Anyway, this one is about the victim of a psychiatrist. I'm not going to waste more of your time. Dear God, I need a drink or something. Statement of Mason Coppet regarding his foster parents. Original statements given March 9, 2014. Audio recorded by Gerard Delano, Assistant Archivist of the Magnus Institute, London. Statement begins. I was placed in the home of William and Hannah Chambers in 74, so I was about 4 then. Mr. and Mrs. Chambers were good people, wonderful people that not only raised me but numerous children as well were placed in their care. I kinda wish they would have adopted me when I was getting close to becoming an adult, but I think they didn't adopt any of the children because they wanted to treat us all equally, you know? I just feel like I'm partly responsible for what has become of them. I want to tell someone about it, because I feel like if I don't want to think about what could happen. On a whim, I wanted to call up the Chambers to ask about visiting, letting them know about how I've been and my daughter. Mr. and Mrs. Chambers always told me and the other children that we were welcome to visit them, only if we gave them a call first to let them know ahead of time. It is important to be courteous. Sudden visits are very rude and we are not rude people. It's something Miss Chambers always would tell us, and I have adopted that mantra very deeply into my life. I had a bit of a run around when they did not answer my phone calls at first, which made me a tad concerned for them. I know they are getting on in their years, but they were never ones to ignore a ringing phone. When they finally answered on the 4th dial, I got Mrs. Chambers on the line. This broke my heart a bit to hear, especially when I heard that rasp of worn exasperation on her voice, as she told me of her recent endeavors and the spices she had accumulated. She loved to collect spices since Mr. Chambers was always enamored by spice. We conversed for a bit and I asked if there was any way I could come up to visit them, as I had a backlog of vacation days I was hoping to take. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. I had worried that I had been hung up on. When I heard some clattering on the earpiece and she spoke again, she told me I could come over tomorrow, actually, and would love to see me again. The thing was, when she said that I could come over, I'm not sure, but I could have sworn there was a shiver in her voice. Something about that phone call unsettled me, both in how warm Mr. Chambers sounded and that long pause of silence that happened. It sort of haunted me for a while, and I think I'm still haunted by it to this day. I resolved to ask when I went to visit, and the very next day I had driven to the house. It looked the same as I remembered, still had the green grass in the front, and the porch was scarred with lounge chairs since Mrs. Chambers often would be sitting out front smoking. I had hoped she had kicked the habit by then, but I still remember fondly the times where she caught me smoking and would scold me. She did buy me a pack on my 18th birthday, and we smoked together as my gift. Even so, I had quit by then, and I had been hoping she had as well. However, there was something about the house that felt different. It probably had to do with the large quantity of cobwebs that were littered about in the corners of the porch and walls. Mr. Chambers was probably not as spry as he used to be and was not able to prevent spiders from coming in to form their nest. I'm not opposed to spiders, but the amount that were present did not sit right with me. I shook off the feeling and knocked on the door while announcing my arrival. There was some shuffling behind the door, and I looked on Mrs. Chambers as she greeted me. I couldn't help the gasp of alarm I made when I saw her. Like I said, Mrs. Chambers had always been a smoker, and I think many of the children who lived there at least stumbled on her hidden cigarette stash a few times. I know I did, but she always practiced moderation. She never crossed the streams of fully diving into addiction. It's naive to say, I know, but I had always hoped that Mrs. Chambers wouldn't be so affected by it. She looked emaciated, her cheeks sunken along with her eye bags that looked like they were barely holding onto her face. I think a wind could blow through her with how pitiful thin she looked, and I was feeling anxious just looking at her. She did not seem to notice my apprehension as she greeted me warmly, raising her shaking arms for a hug. I was so careful as I returned the hug to her, and I could feel my chest tighten with the rapid age that seemed to have afflicted my foster mother. Once I was inside, it was like I had never left. Mr. Chambers also welcomed me with a warm hug, and I believe I got a bit choked up as I looked at my aged foster parents. They held so much warmth in their eyes as we all talked amongst ourselves, reminiscing of my childhood and sharing funny stories during my stay. It was nice talking with them again. It was nice while it lasted. The question had been lingering on my mind as the day came and went, the question on whether or not they were still fostering children. I knew they had to be too frail to even raise small children anymore, and I was hoping they were at least in their own form of retirement. I did not get the chance to ask when the door opened and closed itself, and she walked in. I had been sitting by the dining table, and my back had been to the door, so when I turned to see who walked in, I only saw an adolescent girl in a secondary school uniform. She didn't even seem surprised to see me there at all, but I was surprised to see her. I didn't feel anything off from her, and it's why I stood to greet her and offer my hand for a shake. Then she showed me her smile and introduced herself as Dahlia, and I don't know how you can feel uncomfortable around a child. I've never seen the logic on creepy children and the like, and I consider myself a hard man to intimidate. But it just suddenly felt like I was being watched by thousands of tiny eyes, all while I felt my whole body become rooted where I stood. I didn't realize until later, once I returned home, that wrong feeling when I had stood on the porch of the chambers was exactly the same feeling I had towards that child. The feeling of so many eyes that now I understand to be crawling little things, taking in the discomfort as she shook my hand. My body did eventually move, but not of my own accord. Something made me drop her hands and turn towards Mr. and Mrs. Chambers. Their pained smiles I now recognize, looking to be practically pulled on to fool me. Something made me sit back down on my chair as inside I was struggling to break whatever control held me so. You know that phrase, an out-of-body experience? I don't think that description fits what happened to me. I was very aware. I saw my body move and I saw my hands reach for the cigarette pack in my pocket. I mentioned how I had quit 5 years ago, to be correct, for health reasons, and I carried them as a testament for the growth I had made. But that girl seemed to grow amused as I pulled the pack out, tapping the bottom with practices and raising the butt towards my waiting mouth. And again, I witnessed my own body move without my consent, and I wanted to scream, a scream that choked on my throat. I could practically taste the tar on my tongue, and it made me want to vomit as I saw my hand shake. I was resisting, but it felt like whatever was controlling my hand was stronger than me. Then my phone rang. It was my daughter, Carol. I knew it was her because she had taken my phone once and changed the ringtone to something silly, but I would know immediately it was her. The sound broke the control over my body, and with whatever strength I had in me, I ran out of the house. I didn't even look back to Mr. and Mrs. Chambers. I did carry a welfare check on them. I was only told that they were preparing dinner with their daughter, and that I had nothing to worry about. Even though it was my daughter's phone call that possibly saved my life, the guilt ate at me for leaving my foster parents there with that. I don't even think I should call it a child. I try to forget, but the nightmares are, unfortunately, a human thing we must endure. Some part of me feels like she wasn't after me, that she was after something the Chambers harbored. I think she got it in the end, because I started to smoke once again. Statement ends. Now you might be wondering, why did I say psychiatrist? Well, this is about the second time this Dahlia Chambers appears. That's because this is the famous Dahlia Chambers, addiction psychiatrist, and well, now we have some additional information about her thanks to Mr. Coppet, since his statement mentions both William and Hannah Chambers, and they were both known for fostering children for many years, up until 1996, not so long ago, where it seems they ceased fostering due to an incident where a child had passed in their care? Oh my god. What is it about this woman that... Yes, well, she is freaky for sure. Other than the constant mention of spiders and the lack of control, many feel... Yeah, I can see that. The actually sad part is that Mr. William and Mrs. Hannah Chambers... Well, Mr. William had passed from kidney failure in 2013, where the documents cite his diet of constantly taking in spicy foods caused his kidney to deteriorate over time. Gruesome. And Mrs. Hannah Chambers passed from lung failure in 2014, where her autopsy cites that her lungs were completely shriveled and charred from prolonged smoking. Beautiful. There is no further mention of what became of Dhalia Chambers, or, more importantly, why, when the house was sold, it was ordered to be burned down due to a rampant infestation of spiders. And recording.